Glad that you all are here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to thank Dr. Falkner for leading this Praxis Bootcamp for 5024 Education of Young Children. I am, as you all know, Dr. Yana Perkins. I'm the Clinical Placement and Induction Coordinator, and I'm going to be sharing some resources with you all. So, Dr. Falkner, I'm going to actually share my screen. If you could stop share, and we're going to take a little trip, we're going to take a little journey to look at some of the Praxis resources. Now drop in the chat or you can unmute, but tell me who's already used some of these Praxis resources on our Praxis website. Anyone? Okay, well, that's all right. So now you have the access to those resources. I put that in the chat. And I'm going to go here. Okay, good. Darcy has used 240 tutoring. Darcy, could you unmute or drop in the chat? What do you think about 240?
240 tutoring helped me a lot with the 5025.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it helped me a whole lot.
Very good. Thank you for letting me know that, Darcy. And I also want to let you all know that the 240 tutoring system actually includes 5024 and 5205. So all the tests that you have to take. All right, so let's start up here. If you ever wonder about which tests you're supposed to take, then you can start here at the undergraduate tests. And you're able to take a look at all of the tests that you are supposed to take as an early childhood student. So right here with human development and learning, you're able to see what you're supposed to take and when you're supposed to take it. So for my individuals who are going to be seniors, all right, seniors in the fall of 2023, you need to take and pass the test code 5025, early childhood education, with a 156 prior to residency 2. So you have to pass that by December 1st, 2023. All right. Then you have 2 other tests that you have to pass in the spring of 2024. That one of the tests is the teaching reading elementary education, and you have to pass that by February 15th. Then you have education of young children. So that's the test that we're going to be talking about today. And you must pass that as well by February 15th. The passing scores can also be found on this document. So you see the 156 for 5025, 159 for 5205, and then you have the 160 for 5024. So before I move on, are there any questions about your licensure requirements? All right, awesome. So let's go back to this page. As a reminder, I clicked up here for the requirements. Then we have some opportunities for Praxis scholarships. So there are several Praxis scholarships. We just closed the Praxis scholarship opportunity where you receive a voucher. We closed that on March 15th, but there are several other opportunities outside of the College of Education for you to receive scholarships. So these are additional scholarships here. We just actually added one for 240 tutoring that's going to be due sometime over the summer. So I do recommend that you all apply to those. Then we have the OTECP Praxis workshops. You're attending one right now. So if you signed up, awesome. You will be receiving emails in the fall as well with these Praxis scholarship opportunities and workshop opportunities. But let's say that you have a situation where you missed an email and you just want to go on this page, you can just click right here and sign up. Then we have the OTECP Praxis resources. So all previous workshop videos can be found right here. So you're actually able to see the 5025 workshop that was previously done and all of the previous 5205 workshops. Under additional Praxis resources, you have a variety of resources. So if you're a book person, then you can use the library resource. Then I'm going to take you all to the Tennessee Electronic Library. Has anybody used that resource? No. Yeah, all right. Dr. Falkner did. Awesome. Well, this is a free resource. It's very similar to 240 tutoring, but it's not as exhaustive. I'm going to put the link here, but the easiest thing to do is to go to our website to access the link. It is geo-linked, which means that you do have to be in the state of Tennessee to use it. The first thing you want to do is make an account, and then you're going to click vocational, and then you're going to scroll down to teaching. And then you're going to find your test. So in your case, you're going to find early childhood exam prep, and they do only have the one exam there. So I'm already signed in. I've already made an account. So I want to just briefly show you all what that looks like. So here we are at the Praxis Early Childhood Education. So they have an overview, and it's a brief overview. But the thing that I love about this system is that they offer practice. So you're able to practice the questions that you're most likely to see. And they have 2 practice tests on this system, on this site. All right. Then we have 240 tutoring, which Darcy shared. Is a great system. It is very similar where you get practice. So that's under additional resources. So you sign up here, and I want to show you all the sign up because people sometimes get confused. I did have some students that tell me that they went directly to the website and they were about to pay for it. But we actually cover that monthly fee, but we do have to every 30 days check in with you all to make sure that you're still using the system. So we've put this system in place to ensure that you all sign up and that you're actually using it. So you would just choose Human Development and Learning, give us a little information about yourself, and you have a choice. You can meet with me one-on-one to develop a study plan, or you can develop a study plan using the template that's provided. So if you've already been studying, you already kind of know what you're doing, then I suggest that you develop the study plan on your own. But if you need some more direction, I'm always happy to meet with you all. All right, so we do have some other options, so Chegg and study.com, but for your test, those are not as appropriate. Then we have the general groups, and I do love for people to engage in the Facebook groups. This one is for 5001, but they also share resources for other tests like 5205, which you all do have to take. All right. So I am going to stop share, and I want to briefly review with you all. What did you learn about some of the resources that are available? You can raise your hand, you can unmute, or you can drop in the chat.
I was just unaware of all the resources we had. I just thought we had 240 tutoring, but that was really helpful though.
I'm so glad. Thank you, Janelle. Anyone else? Okay. Darcy says she agrees with Giselle. Okay. Yes. All right. So you like that you can meet? Absolutely. And seeing all of the scholarships. Thank you, Dr. Falkner. Yeah, the study plan, I love developing a study plan with you all because it's tailored to you. So whatever you feel like is appropriate for where you are in your life and that at that time, that's how we make your study plan. And sometimes I meet with students multiple times throughout a year because they might have way more time over the summer than they would during the semesters, or they might work. So we have to develop a special tailored study plan for times that they're not working. So I'm here as a resource for you all. I'm looking forward to meeting with you all, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Falkner, and she's going to teach you all so much about 5024 today.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay. I am Anna Falkner. I'm an assistant professor in ICL, and I'm in the early childhood program. For some of you, I know you very well, and some of you I don't know very well. So I wanted to start just by saying how impressed I am that you're giving up an evening. I know some of you are in class 2 nights a week at least. That's a lot, and some of you even more. So that I am just noticing all of your dedication and your commitment to doing well and to your craft as teachers. So nice. So what we're going to do today is, and I wanted to also shout out and thank Dr. Perkins and the College of Education Office of Teacher and Education and Clinical Practice, which I never can say, but which is super important to y'all. And they are fantastic, and they always have such excellent resources, and they're always so quick to share them. So I am just so impressed with them all the time. Like literally, when people ask me, one of the things I love about University of Memphis, like that college, that office is one of the things that I always share. So here's what we're going to do today. So Dr. Perkins, take us through a little bit of the overview of the tests that are required and the website. If you have any questions for her, make sure you drop them in the chat. She'll be with us this evening. We're going to talk through what are the requirements of 5024, and then we're going to do some general test taking tips and some tips and some specific ones for 5024. And then we'll do a little mini practice test kind of quiz thing. And then we're going to do what I call a choose your own adventure, which basically means you're going to pick something that you're ready to go ahead and dig into a little bit and review and take some notes tonight. So the Education for Young Children exam is really designed to assess your knowledge about connecting theory to practice, how we apply theory in the educational setting. For those of you who have class with me, we do this every single class session, essentially. It's got 120 selected response questions. And yes, those 3 BSD constructed response questions there at the end. And those are based on content that typically gets covered in an early childhood program. So the stuff we do in class regularly. So you have 150 minutes. The pacing guide says you should take around 120 minutes for those 120 selected response questions, so about a minute per question, and then about 30 minutes for the constructed response, so about 10 minutes to write each of those. They're not independently timed, which means you are responsible for sort of pacing yourself as you go through, which I think is something that's important to always pay attention to and think about your own process and how you want to prepare. When we look at the content categories, the biggest chunk down here is the content, pedagogy, and knowledge. So we'll take a look at what's actually entailed in that in a second. But then after that, we have knowledge of teaching and childhood development and learning are all kind of roughly the same. And then the smaller chunks are observation, documentation, and assessment, developmentally appropriate practice, and professionalism, family, and community. All things that get covered in class, but definitely things that sometimes it might be helpful to review. So drop it in the chat. Do you remember how many questions are there? Or unmute, either one. 120 questions. Yep. And then the 3 constructed response. Yes. How long do you have per question? What's your pacing look like? About a minute each on those multiple choice guys. Not long enough. It does move pretty quick. That 1 minute can go real fast when you're trying to process and really think through each one carefully. And then those broad overarching areas, there's a lot of them, so I'm not going to ask you. About 10 minutes per constructed response. Yep. And then if we take a look here, let's see here. You can kind of get a sense of the number of each of these questions based on the sort of percentage. So a big chunk of those come out of the content. Now, it's interactive computer format. This is something that probably most of you are fairly familiar with at this point because you've had to do it for the ACT or the Praxis core or whatever it is you've taken before. You're probably familiar with selected response where you do this sort of clicking through bit. And they're computer delivered tests, and you could see kind of like what the format looks like at this video right up here. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you haven't seen it, or if you just want to make sure that you know, I have anything that's underlined throughout the slides is going to be linked. Oh, it might be helpful if I actually shared the slides with you. Huh. Let me do that real quick. All right, drop the link. That's the slides right there in case you want to follow along, or later in case you want to take a look at any of these fantastic resources that are here. All right, let's talk through some resources and tips. Some of this is going to be familiar to you because you've done it. You may have done test preps in other ways. So for example, this test prep process really follows something simple. Assess your prior knowledge is your first step. Where are you in this process? What do you know so far? Then you're going to make a plan and gather resources, which, as we noted earlier, you can do with Dr. Perkins or in that office. Then you need to take notes. My recommendation is that you make it creative and that you do it with other people. And then as you go through, you want to do that reassessment, take exams, and then make some plans for your next steps. So Dr. Perkins shared all those amazing resources. I dropped a few additional ones in here, including some Quizlet flashcards. These are made by someone on the internet. So some of them are going to be really useful to you. You know, they're Quizlet flashcards. So I think they're kind of, you know, mixed use, but I like having them there. And then this one right here is a YouTube playlist that is just video after video that covers content that's covered on 1524, as well as just some like general information on 1524. Over here, we got practice tests, both long and short. And then, of course, the ETS official study guide, the official study resources and study plans, and then the Praxis resources from the TEP office. One person that I always like to recommend is Kathleen Jasper, because her videos, she has books and all kinds of stuff out about Praxis that are super helpful. And I really like the constructed response video. This one is about the teaching reading. However, I do feel like the content can be super helpful. One, some of the content stuff is going to be useful to you, period. But two, how she formats and how she thinks through planning a constructed response is super helpful. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, that would have been really helpful for me when I was taking these tests. Because that's not something that resource was not around in my day. And so there's a whole playlist here with just how to write a constructed response, where it talks about the overview, the scoring, the strategy, looks at some sample responses, and then a couple of different types of constructed responses that might be useful to think about as you go forward.
Hi there.
We're not going to actually watch her. Hang on, Kathleen. Okay. Basic test taking tips. Read your questions and answers thoroughly. Limit your answer to the choices given. This one feels kind of obvious, but I often find myself being like, well, it's obviously this other thing, and it's not even there. Particularly when we talk about some of the newer theories and like more modern critiques of some of the things that come up. So for example, one of the things that's covered on this test is Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. For those of you that have been in my class, I tend to come down pretty hard on multiple intelligences because we have so much research that debunks it. But it's still covered on the test. So if Howard Gardner shows up, then we're just going to grit our teeth and answer the question that is in front of us, not the question that we wish was being asked. So make sure that when you're thinking through your answers, really focus on like what is there and what's available. Rule out the ones that don't make any sense. And then use that substitution method. Go back and read the question and substitute your own answer and see if it makes sense. I tend to take tests all over the place. So I skip any hard questions and I try to move pretty quickly through the ones I feel really confident in. And that way I feel like I have more time at the end to really sit and focus on the ones that I may have a little question for. But if you do that, you still have to keep track of time and you have to make sure that you are making sense of each question and not missing anything. This piece right here is one that I absolutely love. So how many of you have experience with, have ever seen, have ever tried visual note-taking techniques? Drop it in the chat or unmute and tell us. Ooh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. There's like a clear option. No experience. Oh, Jade, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Okay, so visual note taking is essentially Darcy's like, yes, didn't call it that. But absolutely, I think some of us have seen this kind of thing. But visual note taking is really just representing the information in a very visual format. So you can see a couple of examples on the slides here where people have drawn little pictures. They use arrows or color to highlight particular things. Yes, Giselle's like, oh my God, it has a name, super. There's lots and lots and lots of different ways to do this. For those of you who are in my classes, you'll notice that I tend to gravitate towards slides that do this as well. So if you are more of a digital person, you can use digital slides to organize your information and still include lots of that like arrows and graphic organizers and that kind of thing. Because my drawing skills are not amazing, but I can drag and copy an arrow. So what I have here are a bunch of different examples of what this looks like. At the bottom is this one that's just like, here are some research-backed study techniques. Not all of us are given a lot of support in learning study habits when we're in high school or even in college. And so I think giving yourself some time to figure out what works great for you is incredibly important. Now, by this point, lots of you figure that out, but there's always room to try something new. And that's why I offer the visual note taking. So this is an article that's linked in the slides around what visual note taking is. And this one is actually like gives you a little information on using it with your students, which I think is fantastic. And then this guy right here is about how to take notes from videos. A lot of the information that we're offering here and a lot of the resources that we're offering here are videos. And one of the things that tends to happen when we watch a video is that we can maybe sort of treat it like a TV show and maybe zone out a little bit. And so I think it's really helpful to have a good sense of how should I actually take notes of videos. So if you're somebody who likes a video, who thinks it's really helpful, this video, I see how many times I can say the word video, will actually give you a really clear strategy for making sure that you're getting the most out of those resources. So we have taking notes on videos, doing some visual note takings, effective strategies for studying, like not doing it a ton of time, making sure you do self-quizzing. So drop it in the chat. What is your favorite method of studying so far? And then what method do you think you might want to try out this semester? think my favorite method so far is I like to read and highlight and take notes like directly onto things. But I am probably going to get into visual note taking because I just think it's really cool. Lots of self-quizzing. That's always super helpful and important. It does look really nice and organized. I feel like there's definitely people whose like visual note-taking skills are like really strong. And so I think it maybe takes practice, but it's definitely fun to try. Plus you get to use fun colors. Jade usually does flashcards from Quizlet, watching videos, trying the visual note taking. Okay, you're gonna have to let me know what you think of the visual note taking. And if you decide to try checking out some of the videos around how to take notes from a video, let me know what you think too. All right, cool. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take just a little bit and hopefully we can get into we'll work in the Jamboard because we're going to work in the Jamboard because I want you to using graphic organizers made for kids is perfect. I love that. Are you a Venn diagram fan?
Yes.
So if you want to jump back on the Jamboard, I'm going to put some music on and give us a few minutes because I want you to take a little bit of time to think through how well do you know this content already? And for those of you who have done any of the test prep stuff from Praxis before, this is part of the official Praxis study guide. So this is not something that I made up. This is literally like, here's the test content categories, and then give yourself a little 1 to 5. How well do I know this content? You could do it with a text box. So for example, I know the content of children's multiple interrelated areas of development and learning very well. I'll give myself a 5 on that one. And if you feel like you don't know it super well, bring it on down. So I'll put some music on and I'm going to mute myself to give everybody time. There's a bunch of these slides. So even if you don't have a chance to put your number on all of them, take a look at what's covered here, because that is going to help you plan what you do for your studying. So music on, let's see here. We'll do how to train the dragon, I think. So let me ask you this question. Was there anything on that list that seemed really surprising to you? Was there anything that you were like, ooh, I am really going to have to go back and review this one? It looks like maybe this last one here may be a little tricky for folks. Knows theory and research to construct learning environments that provide achievable and challenging experiences for each child. Absolutely. I think that that's something that we sort of touch on in the content area classes, but we don't get as much into. For those of you who haven't taken 4515, we will have like a whole section focused on environments in there. And so if you are, you can certainly like find some great resources out there about learning environments, but just know that we'll also be covering that a good bit in the fall. Anything about theories you get kind of nervous about? I think that is valid, because a lot of the times we spend a lot of our time in class like applying the theories, and we don't dig as much into that theoretical piece. But I think when you look at them, you'll probably find that you're a lot more familiar with them than you think you are. And Jade, to your point, I think this probably going to be the case as well. As if you were answering a question about it, I think you would discover you might feel, you might be like, oh, I actually do know this. Which is why I think that there's sort of two pieces to start prepping, right? The first piece is to like, how well do I know the content? Family and community characteristics kind of thing, developmentally appropriate play, activity, and learning processes. But if I were to ask you a question, and then the other piece is to actually take the practice test and really get a sense of like, okay, well, I don't feel super confident if I'm just reading the categories, but what does it look like if I'm going into this and doing this in practice? So to that end, let's take a little practice test and see how we're doing. This is not anything super fancy. It's going to be with something called Brightful, which I've never tried before. So we'll find out if we like it. Make it open. Where did my Brightful go? Make sure that that's the right room. Yep. That's the right room. Look at everybody coming in. Hi. Sounds like the TiVo button. Some of y'all may not remember TiVo. Maybe a second to join. I'm Darcy. I think we may have. I think that's everybody. Yes. All right, let's start the game. I didn't pay any money for this, so it wants to tell me that. Okay. Okay, what do we want? Rapid fire or casual? Rapid fire, we race against the clock. Oh, and we can use power-ups to battle for the most points. It's very fast-paced. Let's do casual. All right, you're gonna have, we'll do a full minute since that's what you get on the exam. All 5 questions and you get a full minute. Let's begin. Which of the following descriptions of physical development is typical for a child of 6 years old? A, likes to skip, somersault, copy designs, including letters. B, stands on tiptoe, kicks ball forward, able to screw and unscrew lids. C, walks on tiptoe, begins to skip, draws in circular motions. D, gallops, able to draw designs, including letters. I'm just going to pick one at random because I didn't mean to actually play. Yay! It is likes to skip, somersault, copy designs, including letters. So if we think about galloping, galloping tends to show up a little earlier before skipping. And then let's see here. Some of these are kind of tricky. Stands on tiptoe, begins to skip. I always think about, my son said the hardest part about kindergarten was learning how to skip. So, oh, welcome, Keegan. You cannot join our game. However, if you want to drop your answer in the chat, I will answer for you and I'll be you. We scored 1 point, you and me. All right, question 2. Which of the following is an example of an appropriate notation in a teacher's anecdotal records of a 3-year-old's language development? Malika loves to arrange books about cats in the classroom book nook. Malika should be tested for a possible auditory difficulty. Malika is unable to use pronouns correctly. Malika can answer simple questions about objects.
This is this is not accurate, so it's good.
Let's make sure we're all muted.
Flashing lights. All right, Malika can answer simple questions about objects. So this is descriptive. So when we're doing anecdotal notes, we're doing descriptive things, right? We're just describing what is happening in this particular piece of information. But there's 2 here that are descriptive. Malika can answer simple questions about objects, and Malika loves to arrange books about cats in the classroom book nook. Arranging the books about cats has more to do with her understanding of concepts and sorting sort of behavior. That's more of a cognitive thing than if I'm trying to document language development. In this case, Malika can answer simple questions about objects, is descriptive, and it's focused on language. All right, question 3. A preschool teacher wants to teach 4-year-old kids the formal mathematical symbols for the numbers 1 through 9. The best way to assess their readiness would be determine if they can demonstrate one-to-one correspondence using objects, determine if they can group objects into sets of 2s and 3s, determine if they can count orally to 10, or determine if they can classify objects that are similar in shape. Which one will they need before they can learn the symbols for numbers 1 to 9? All right, Keegan's going orally 1 to 10. I guess I probably shouldn't say that out loud. All right, Keegan. No points for us, Keegan. So determine if they can demonstrate one-to-one correspondence using objects, because grouping objects into sets of 2s and 3s is going to come after that, right? Classifying objects that are similar in shape. Nobody chose that. You knew it was wrong. Counting orally 1 to 10 involves that like sequencing piece. But what's more important than just being able to name the numbers is whether or not they can actually do that correspondence. That's the big one that we're really looking for. All right. Which materials would best aid 4-year-old children in developing initial concepts about the physical characteristics of different objects? Pictures of balls, building blocks, brick buildings, piles of balls, sandpaper, rough wood, silk cloth, wet soap, toy train, pictures of trains, stories about trains, and sound recordings of trains, and toy animals, pictures of balls, sandpaper, and sound recording of trains. All right. Sandpaper, rough wood, silk cloth, and wet soap. Why this one? If I'm trying to get kids to develop those initial concepts about different physical characteristics, then I want to choose a collection that offers the widest physical characteristics. So the first one has lots of physical characteristics, meaning like if they touched them, what are the physical characteristics? Sandpaper is rough. Rough wood is going to offer some like kind of splintery sort of pieces. Silk cloth is going to be sort of silky smooth. It's going to offer a kind of a smooth, cold experience. Wet soap is going to be smooth and slippery. Some of these other ones, so let's look at the next one. Toy animals, pictures of balls, sandpaper, and sound recording of trains. The sound recording of trains is not going to offer them any kind of physical engagement. So that one's not going to work. We can rule out that one and the other one with all the trains ones. And then the last one, pictures of balls, building blocks, brick buildings, piles of balls. It's the picture one that's tricky because it doesn't offer them that physical characteristic. If it's just a picture, we want them to have something that lets them engage in that tactile exploration. All right, which of the following is the best example of a child who is in the pre-operational stage of Piaget's cognitive development? Is it Catherine analyzes different aspects of a problem in order to solve it? Laura engages in extensive pretend play. Michelle explores objects by putting them in her mouth. And Stephen recognizes the feelings and thoughts of others as different from his own. Pre-operational stage. Okay. Ooh, there we go. Laura engages in extensive pretend play. Absolutely. Exploring objects by putting them in her mouth is going to be a little bit earlier than pre-operational. Apparently, I should upgrade to avoid repeated questions, even though we didn't have repeated questions. Yeah, Jade! Remember me saying earlier that you know more than you think you do? Clearly you do, because you got 4 out of 5 correct. Bye-bye. All right. Back to our slideshow. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a sort of choose your own adventure activity. And because those of you who know me know I love a center. that's essentially what we're going to do. So based on our mini test, you're going to pick a topic that you feel like you need to review. So which thing were you like, I'm not super sure about this. You're going to pick that resource, and we're going to spend some time with just that resource, and go ahead and take some notes. You can take them on the Jamboard if you'd like, but take some notes as you go through, and then prepare to share. So we'll come back together in just a little bit to talk about what you're interested in and what you learned. So if you were thinking about the major, they're in different order than they were in the quiz. So sorry about that. But if the pre-operational question about Piaget kind of tripped you up, then you might want to check out one of these videos that reviews major theories of learning and development. If the one around anecdotal notes of language development tripped you up, then you should check out either the anecdotal notes video or the theories of language development. I would do the anecdotal notes, since that question was more about anecdotal notes than it was about language development. If you're thinking about children's physical development, or kind of the sequence of development, that sort of one about the 6-year-old, check out this one around a book called Yardsticks, which is fantastic. And then if the math one sort of tripped you up and thinking about what kids would need before they could get that 0 to 9, then review number and operations. And
hi, everybody.
No. Last but not least, if you were kind of confused about choosing materials, then you're going to watch this video about creating your classroom's physical environment. So each of these videos is a different length. So that's kind of the tricky part. So those are, that one was 2. This one is 10. This one is kind of 13. So what we'll do is we'll take about 10 minutes. So take your 10 minutes, pick a video. You may get all the way through it. If so, you can go pick another one and take some more notes, and then we'll come back together to discuss. So it is 7:03. Actually, why don't we come back all the way at 7:15? Are we back? What did you learn?
One thing that I learned from my video was that like something that seems simple for a child may be like really like in depth and hard. So for example, it said like making a bracelet. You don't know if that child was like, if they like did it by pattern, or if they like went through individual beads and like looked at the color, and like something so simple may have gone really in depth if for like a younger child.
Yeah. Nice. What else? What else do we want to hang on to? What else did we learn? Thank you, Jade. We had some folks that needed to step away for a second. All right. We can always come back to it. So we wanted to give us a chance to take a look at some of the other resources and questions that are in the study guide. So we're going to take a look at the study companion. Now, if you remember earlier in the session, we took a look at the ETS website right here. And so we have the Praxis test materials. There's study companion, study plan, which is really for you kind of to like set yourself some expectations, and an interactive practice test. Now, the interactive practice test, I highly recommend that you do because it does simulate the test. It's got an authentic set of test questions, answers, all that kind of good stuff. But for now, we'll take a look at the study companion. Well, then I should have picked a different video, Jade. But I appreciate that you got to take a look there. All right, so we're taking a look here at the sample test questions in the Praxis study guide. So I'm going to try and zoom it in real well here. All right, so here's this first one. What we're going to do is we're going to ask the question, and then what I'd like us to do is have a little bit of a conversation here around which one do we think we can eliminate? Is there one that we think is going to be better than the others? So when we do this, you're going to need to unmute or drop it in the chat real quick so that we can all be kind of sharing out. And then if we want to, we might go through and do a few different ones. Okay, so the first one. Of the following, which lists all the concepts of measurement that a child at the pre-operational level can understand? So if anybody watched that Piaget video, maybe you're going to be in on it. Is it A, the height of an object? B, the height and length of an object? C, height, width, and length of an object? Or D, the height, width, length, and surface area of an object? What are our first thoughts here? I'll give you a clue. For those of you who remember our conversation about egocentrism and the 3 mountain task, that has to do with pre-operational versus formal levels from Piaget. All right, Jade, I know you're here. What do you think? Ashley thinks it's A, the height of an object. Why? Felt like it was B, but after that, well, then I shouldn't have said that because I definitely confused you. You were closer with B. So, no, you're good. 6-year-old meltdowns are always a thing and worthy of giving your attention to. So, what do you think we can eliminate?
Definitely D,
Okay. Why?
because I have issues with surface areas of objects. So
Okay, so I super confused you all. Okay, so let's talk about pre-operational sort of, the pre-operational stage. So in the pre-operational stage, kids are perceived as having they can only perceive one aspect of an object at a time. Okay, so according to Piaget, that's why in the 3 mountain task, for those of you who remember the 3 mountain task, the kids couldn't really understand what was like, they couldn't take the perspective of somebody who was on the other side. So if they can only pay attention to one aspect of an object, what's our answer? Yeah, it's A. Once they move into concrete operations level, then they can comprehend, they can sort of pay attention to the interaction of 2 dimensions, and then formal operations, they're going to move into interactions of 2 or more variables. It gets a lot more complicated. But pre-operational is going to be just the height of an object, just that one basic thing that they can pay attention to. So we might want to, in fact, I may need to go back and review Piaget with y'all, because I don't know that we always spend a ton of time on it. All right, let's look at number 2. Before reading a story about butterflies to his first grade class, Mr. Alexander would like to access their prior knowledge of the subject. Which of the following would best address this objective? Reinforcing concepts with an integrated curriculum, modeling concepts of print using a relevant big book, prompting reflective thinking through a picture walk, and discussing age-appropriate research about butterflies. Before we answer this, what are you paying attention to in the question here? What part of this question, if you had to like boil it down, what is this question really asking you about? Yeah, it's asking you about prior knowledge. Once you narrow it in that you know this is about prior knowledge and activating that prior knowledge, which one of these are there any that we can eliminate? Why can we eliminate D?
Most kids in that age do not research.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have like current research about butterflies. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't add that, but it's probably not prior knowledge. Absolutely. Okay, so we can knock D out of there. So is there any, let's take a look at B. What is going on with B? Can we eliminate it?
Yes,
Why?
because we're not talking about concepts of print.
Yeah, that's not the focus of the lesson. Okay, so now that leaves us with A and C. Which one's the better answer? Ooh, some conflict. A versus C. All right, my A people. Why A?
Well, yeah, the word reinforcing made me think A because he's like it's like going back over it. But now when I'm looking at C, I see the word reflective. But when I think of reflective, I think you've already taught it, and then they're going to reflect on what they've learned.
But it's reflective thinking. Somebody who did C, why did you do C?
Pick C because with reflective thinking, he might go through, ask them questions about what they remember from, a previous lesson or what they learned from maybe kindergarten.
Yeah.
Go through that with them. So
in this case, C is the best answer because, and really for 2 reasons. One of them, yes, is that like that reflective thinking is a big part of it. But the picture walk in particular is a really good way to activate prior knowledge because you don't have to get really deep into it to get kids thinking about it. Like, oh yes, oh my gosh, I see how it's, let's see, it's all about butterflies, right? So like, oh yeah, I remember the butterfly goes in the little thing, what's that thing called, right? And that can come up really quickly through a picture. An integrated curriculum is fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not the best way to activate prior knowledge. With prior knowledge, we want to give them a little, it's like giving little clues here. And so in this case, the picture walk is going to be the best strategy. All right. Number 3 with Mr. Lin. Mr. Lin teaches a 2nd grade class that includes 3 special education students whose individualized education programs, or IEPs, require the services of the speech-language pathologist. These services are scheduled during the class's book battle time, and Mr. Lin regularly keeps the students in class for that activity because he believes it benefits their reading skills. Which of the following best explains why Mr. Lin is in violation of the student's IEPs? Dang, Mr. Lin, watch out. All right, is it A, Mr. Lin is not providing the students educational supports in the least restrictive environment? Is it B, Mr. Lin is not fulfilling the specific supports provided for the students in accordance with their IEPs? Is it C, Mr. Lin's actions are causing the speech pathologist to receive payment for services that are not being rendered? Is it D, Mr. Lin is providing supplementary reading support that's not specified in the student's IEPs? All right, first of all, is there anything we can eliminate?
Probably C,
Okay, why is that?
because why are we talking about payment for services?
Yeah, I agree. That one's kind of silly. That doesn't really have anything to do with the students, right? Okay. What about A, B, and D? Y'all, I'm gonna stop my video real quick and go turn the light on so you can actually see me. Okay, I'm back. Let there be light. All right, what about A, B, and D? Any thoughts? What is the least restrictive environment? What does that mean? So least restrictive environment means that students have to have meaningful access to like working with one another, and that we're not going to like we're not going to shut them out. We're not going to make it harder for them to be interacting with their peers. And in this case, that's important to pay attention to because, but we don't know what exactly it says about LRE in their IEPs. What we do know is that their IEPs say that they requires the services of the speech language pathologist. So if we know for sure that their IEP requires the service of the speech language pathologist, is there one of these answers that best aligns with that piece of information? Yeah, it's B, because we know that the only thing we know about their IEP is that they have to have a speech language pathologist. So that means whatever we do here, we have to make sure that we are that they are getting that piece of support. And in this case, because he's keeping them in the classroom, they're not getting that piece of support. Oh, I like this image, Dr. Perkins. Y'all know I love a visual. That's a great example of LRE. Thank you for that. All right, round 4. Mr. Block is encouraging character development in his second grade students by modeling positive character traits. Each week, he awards one of his students the I Know I Can award for sticking with a difficult task. Which of the following traits is he reinforcing by this practice? Compassion, industriousness, perseverance, or citizenship? This one feels like a vocabulary question, and it is just a little bit. But in particular, this question is really trying to assess whether you have a sense of whether you have knowledge, that content knowledge of children's social development. So it's asking you to apply your understanding of like, how do we promote positive behaviors in kids? Compassion is around like showing empathy or sympathy for others. Industriousness is really about being diligent or skillful with work. You can hear that in the industry sort of piece of that word, right? But perseverance is going to really connect to determination and like stick with itness. Yeah, so C is going to be our best answer. All right. Number 5. Oh, it's a theory one. All right, which of the following theories continues to influence the field of early childhood education through the practice of postponing children's entrance to kindergarten from age 5 to age 6, presuming that they are then more ready to learn? Psychoanalytic theory, maturationist theory, sociocultural theory, and behavioral theory. Which one of those? Is there any of these that we can rule out, first of all? I'm muted. Psychoanalytic is going to be what? What does that make you think of? Yeah, it's got something to do with the brain. And then analytic, right? That piece, that second piece there, the analytic is really like analyzing brains. Psychoanalytic is really around like psychoanalysis is like Freud, right? It's like analyzing someone's brain, kind of. So maturationist, what are you hearing in there? Mature, okay. Maturity, yep. Sociocultural theory, what does that tell you? Maybe something around interactions, culture, yep. And then behavioral, does that ring any bells? That's a behaviorist joke. Yeah, behavioral is behavior. The reason why I made that very, very corny joke is that like the behaviorists, one of the examples that often comes up is of Pavlov's dog. Pavlov was a researcher. Pavlov rang a bell every time he fed the dog. The dog learned that if he rang the bell, he expected food. And vice versa. If he had food, he expected to hear the bell. And if he didn't hear the bell, it wasn't. So it's all about like that sort of training piece. That was a little Pavlov's dog joke for you when I asked if there rang any bells. Oh, excellent. Ooh, so we got a little assist from Dr. Perkins here, some child development theorists. Take a look here and see if that helps you. Which one of these is going to be? Both C and D are talked about in education. But believe it or not, that's not the one that we need the most here. it's, oh, I don't know. I don't know how you made that bold, Darcy, but that was cool. Darcy's like, I think it's B. I feel like you're coming in really confident. There are keywords in the question. Absolutely. Darcy's like, I don't know either. So this one, the practice of postponing children's entrance, presuming that they are then more ready to learn. Now, if I'm trying to think about like, if I think that like children's age is really gonna be the thing that makes the biggest difference, there's sort of biological growth, which one of these would that speak to? This one's real tricky. This one is really around the maturationists. So Arnold Gazelle, he said that basically like maturation occurs through these biological processes. And so you have to wait until children are like physically and biologically ready. So in this case, the maturationist theory is going to be the one that is being that's influencing this. That is entirely possible. I don't know that it gets a ton of play, in part because we know that it is a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of other things that play into kids' development besides their biological growth processes. And Giselle, I don't really know how to pronounce that last name, is arguing that like it's the biological processes, not the experiences that are obtained through learning, which is, you could see why education folks might not talk about it as much. Then sort of, you know, we've sort of proved that that's not really the situation. But it does still influence some of these conversations around school readiness. So this is one of those praxis exams cover weird things. All right, we're going to do one more of these and then we're going to shift over a little bit and take a look at this one would, in this case, I would really encourage you to like try and like highlight something that particularly pulls you in. We can rule out psychoanalytic because what they're asking here between 5 and 6 doesn't have anything to do with like brains and psychoanalysis. And we can rule out behavioral because behavioral is about like being able to, like the behaviorist, let's pull this up. The behaviorist is really more about learning. The development is a sequence of conditional behaviors. There's nothing about conditional behaviors in this question. So we can rule those two out, in which case we would then have to decide between sociocultural and maturationist. I ruled out sociocultural because it's not saying that we're waiting until children had engaged with enough other folks that their learning had, you know, changed and their development had changed. It's only saying we're waiting until they're 6. So that's a tricky one. All right, let's do number 6 and then we'll shift and look at the constructed responses for a little bit. Which of the following would most foster the continued development of a child's expressive language? Expressive language being maybe the key words here. Drawing on paper, dramatic play, building blocks, or finger painting? Is there anything we can eliminate? Oh, we're already dropping it. We're like dramatic play. Why dramatic play? Why dramatic play? Why not?
When most kids are playing, they use their imagination
Yeah,
and express themselves with through their imagination.
yes, absolutely. So they're express their language. They're gonna express emotions. I totally agree, Darcy. Building blocks can go definitely, like, kids are going to use expressive language, remember, because expressive language is more about learning to speak, right? And using language. That still is going to happen in building blocks, but dramatic play is going to be the one that's going to be the biggest response, because it's often through those like pretend roles that they take on different perspectives. They even shy and sort of like kids who don't talk as much in other contexts may often start to show stuff during dramatic play. Okay. So we're going to, all these questions are in here, and the answers are also in here. So you can do this sort of practice yourself. I highly recommend doing it with a group, finding other people and just like talking it through and really thinking through which one it is. Have a little battle. Award Cheetos to the person who gets it right. Let's take I don't know why we're awarding Cheetos. I'm just hungry, I guess. So let's take a look down here. There's me. I want to say, oh, where's the constructive response ones? Could have sworn we had that there. Let's have examples. Okay. Let's do. Let's do this one. All right. Okay. In his self-analysis, Mr. Payton says that the better performing students say small group work is boring, and that they learn more working alone or only with students like themselves. Assume that Mr. Payton wants to continue using cooperative learning groups because he believes they have value for all students. You need to describe 2 strategies he could use to address the concerns of the students who have complained, and explain how each strategy could provide an opportunity to improve the functioning of cooperative learning groups. And it says to base your response on principles of effective instructional strategies. So we're going to take about 3 minutes, and I want you to jot down what you think your 2 strategies are, and think through like what your explanation would be. Okay, put the question in the chat as well. So it's 7:46. We'll come back at 7:49. Okay, let's come back together. So when we're doing these constructed response, the study companion has these sort of these like things to keep in mind. And honestly, I tend to think of them a little bit as like a checklist, right? Did I answer exactly what this thing is telling me to do? It says, like, if the question asks you to describe or discuss, you should provide more than just a list. So in this case, we're describing two strategies. So I can't just be like, here's one thing, here's another. I really need to describe like what I think he should do, what the process is he's going to take, how it's going to address the concerns of the students. And then the second part of this, how does each explain how the strategy suggested could provide an opportunity to improve the functioning of cooperative learning groups. So my strategies can't just be that I like listen to the concerns and be like, that is a fair concern. Too bad, so sad, right? Because that, well, one, doesn't really address the concern of the student. And two, it's also not going to improve the functioning of these cooperative learning groups. So what did we come up with? What are some strategies that we thought of that you could use to address the concerns of the students that would also improve the way the groups are operating? Feeling a little stumped?
For I don't really know how to word it. I don't know if it really would be a correct answer, but I was thinking that maybe he could like put certain students together. I know he said that the students um they work best with other students, and sometimes it can be work best with my friends, but like coming like as seen as a teacher, he can look at it and see, or maybe those students work best with another student because they grasp the material in the same way.
Yeah, so I think that's the great point of like really thinking through like how are each of the students in these groups approaching the work to be done, and thinking about have they got complementary skills, is a great way to do that. I would suggest that if you were going to do that, you would think about how you could have that conversation with kids where we're thinking about what is everybody in this group really good at? Can we have some conversations about like, what is Ashley really good at? What is Jade really good at? What is Darcy really good at? So that then the kids also have that recognition of one another's skills. And that is going to be part of it, right? Because what's going on here is that the students are complaining because they feel like it's boring. And a lot of that comes sometimes out of students feeling like they're either doing all the work or that like they're having to do lower work because they're like, oh, I don't really have to do this. And so making kids aware of all of the strengths that are in the group is one strategy to do this. I think the other piece might be around regrouping. To change up some of the different activities that they're doing, and really draw on one another's expertise in different ways. So for example, if I'm just throwing kids in a group and saying, do this group work, then some groups are going to work really well and some groups may not. And so what may need to happen here is that they may need a little bit more of roles, for example. So think about if I have a group that is doing a project or that's doing something around a book, right? If I split it up into roles, now my person who felt like that it was kind of boring is doing something different than the others. So I might ask Darcy to come up with discussion questions because she's such a leader and she's great at like getting everybody talking. I might ask Jade to do the vocabulary. I might ask Ashley to come up with some kind of visual, right? But in doing that, I'm now going to sort of shift the dynamic of the group and hopefully improve the function of the group. Okay, y'all. It is 7:56. So I just want to thank you all for coming this evening. I want to remind you that the TEP office is always fantastic and always super helpful. The slides are this link to the slide is in the chat, and you're welcome to use this as much as you need to. And then of course the recording will be posted, so we'll get to see all my goofy jokes forevermore on the internet. Yay! Any final questions before we wrap up for the evening? Okay. Well, yes, I've been your host, Anna Falkner, and everybody go get some dinner, and I'll see a lot of you tomorrow. So thank you very much. Have a good one.